What up, yo? What up? What up? What up? How you doing? Robin Lundberg Show back and in full effect. If I could only express to you how busy I've been, not to brag or cry or any of those things, but one to the next, to the next, to the next. Getting ready for this WNBA season. Of course, the brand new Indiana Fever on SI is live. Check that out. Link in the description. Women's Fast Break on SI as well. And of course, the national championship has happened. That is over and done with. The WNBA draft on the horizon. We'll get to all that in a second. But before we look forward, let's look back for a second. Let's look back because I saw something last night that caught my attention. I thought this was rather amusing. And that was the reaction to Geno Auriemma and what he had to say about the national championship. To be honest with you, I did not think it was a big deal. It did not jump out to me when I first watched it, but then I saw some of the fan reaction. So let's listen to the 12-time champion and then react to what he had to say. This was Geno. Remember, this is in front of the home fans too. Before I get to it, it was in front of the home fans. Do you remember when LeBron did the not one, not two, not three, not four? That was the reaction to that is still sort of amusing to me because it was the first time I think I realized anything you do anywhere can wind up everywhere. And that's just the way that the internet is in today's day and age. But it also was for a pep rally in Miami, right? It wasn't even for something else. It was the pep rally in Miami, that home crowd. And this was a rally for UConn back home. They had come back home. Here was Geno.
And we're downstairs. We're in patio area. And I looked around and I started counting. And all the former players that was there at one time, sitting in a group like these guys, just hanging out, doing, stuff you do after you're celebrating a win. I was watching, I was counting. And by the time I finished counting, let's see, there's Rebecca, she has one. And there's Jamel Elliott, she has one. And there's Jen Rosati, she has one. And there's Sue, she has two. And then there's Jessica Moore, she has three. And then there's Stewie and Tuck, and they have four each. So all the guys that only had one, they had to sit in the back of the bus. Most other places, if you win one national championship, they build a statue to you outside the building. Here, they won't even let you get to the front of the bus. So by the time I finished counting, I had counted, just sitting there, 27 national championships.
So when I heard that, I thought it was completely in general. By the way, the guy's won 12 titles. He can say what he wants to say. There ain't much, you can come back at him with. How can he not be proud of that accomplishment? He showed a lot of love to his players, particularly Paige Bueckers. But I saw some South Carolina fans apparently in shambles over those comments from Geno Auriemma. And I did not take them as a shot at the Gamecocks, to be honest. I did not think because he said they build a statue at some programs that was meant for Asia Wilson, right? Or a reference to that. I thought he was just saying that is the case. When you win a championship, they build a set, but maybe it's a shot. If so, let's start a rivalry, right? A rivalry would be good for the sport because South Carolina landed Tania Latson today, the leading scorer in the country, which is exactly what that program needed, exactly what they need. Mylasia Fulwiley was and still is in this weird mercurial situation and the dynamics that she has with Dawn Staley, as far as how that plays out. But we'll see, that was a team that needed scoring and someone that could score consistently and create consistently. So I think Latson is a really nice addition for them. And that was the big news today. And, if those two programs are going to remain on top, seeing them battle it out and fighting for the championship, that only increases interest in the sport. Other news today, you had Olivia Miles going to TCU, the team that eliminated Notre Dame. And as far as the South Carolina and Geno conversation goes, when you look at the ratings, this was another topic I wanted to get to today. When you look at the ratings for that game, let me see if I can pull them up real quick. NCAA ratings for the championship. That was a little bit of another conversation, and I've tried my best to keep all this in context, and it's sort of a similar conversation here, but it's worth discussing before I get to you guys, of course. And that were these numbers. I mean, that's a big number. The third most watched NCAA Women's National Championship game on ESPN platforms, 8.5 million viewers. It's a big number. Peak of 9.8 million viewers. And last year, to set the proper context, it was 18.7 million viewers, I think. So they're down 10 million viewers from last year, which is a lot of viewers to be down. And the only other game that it didn't outrate was the year before, LSU and Iowa. So non-Caitlin Clark national championship games, it was the most watched ever on ESPN platforms. Now, even if you take away that 10 million, that number there you just saw is still higher than like any WNBA game ever. Certainly any WNBA game last year. So you have to see the power of the college game, relatively speaking. Now, of course, it speaks to Caitlin Clark's popularity, but I always don't understand how no one can see these things happening in conjunction, right? So that South Carolina UConn number was about double what it was the last time those two teams met in the national championship. What happened in between that? Clark. So that there's a carryover there. The whole growth of the game. It's not Clark. It's not with Clark and without Clark. You cannot separate the two. They work in unison. They are hand in hand. So the game has grown and will continue to grow. And the more it grows without it involving Clark, the better for her too. It's better for everybody in that regard. And I know that's what she would want as well. But it goes to show, like, for 8 million people to watch it, you can talk about the fall, and that's fair. I mean, that's a big drop. But it fell to new heights. And if you remove the need to talk about Caitlin Clark, or at least try to use it as a crutch to get engagement one way or the other, rather than simply discussing what it is, that's a big number, period. Right? Like, yes, it pales in comparison to last year, but it's a big number, period. And it's the same theory I've used for the WNBA when the finals were way up without Caitlin Clark. Doesn't mean that her presence and the new fans she brought in didn't make an impact on those finals ratings. But some of those people stuck around to watch those games, and other players captured the imagination of fans in the process because Paige Bueckers became a big story. Now, I wonder if Paige and Juju had met in the Elite Eight, what that would be like and how that would have added to the numbers and everything as well. So that's food for thought. Maybe like there would have been a little bit of a carryover, not to mention a blowout nature. Like if that game wasn't a blowout, it could have beat the LSU Iowa game if it wasn't a blowout. So the more Geno and Dawn are intertwined and pitted against one another, and UConn and South Carolina are pitted against one another, the better it is for the game. And of course, the way that Caitlin Clark burst on the scene and the wake that she left and the tide that she risen continues to influence. So I do feel like people can't ever put that stuff into the proper context. Please like and subscribe to the channel. Send your comments in, thumbs ups, and all that. I will get to the chats in just a second. Super chats. And member chats get read first, like I always say. And then there was one other bit before I do that. Clark was on with David Letterman. I can't really play it, I don't think, because last time I tried to play Netflix stuff, I got not copyright pinged, but they didn't allow me to use it. They wanted to keep the returns. So I will play this one bit that sort of went reviral, and that was Clark in a scrimmage against some men's practice players. I guess this must have blown up before, but it blew up again because she talked about it with Letterman. Pull up Cash. I think she had 22 points in 2 minutes, she said. Whatever the number is. I mean, and that's just there's just a flair and a dramatic part to her game that no matter how many times people try to take it away, it's undeniable, right? And that doesn't even include her passing, which I think is her standout skill, which she also talked about on the Letterman program. She called that kind of passing a lost art, and she credited soccer for her ability to see the floor. And she was frank in saying, no, not her teammates can't do what she can do when it comes to that particular aspect of the game. But, with Paige and all the comparisons that come up since Paige has come in, people got to remember what it is, this dynamic aspect, this explosive aspect, this different aspect that changed things. Now, Paige has this turnaround, and the turnaround is going to be interesting because just like with Caitlin last year, she's getting drafted in less than a week. And I know it's not the first, like I said something about this on X the other day, and people are like, well, this is the way it's been. Oh, yeah, no crap. And I understand it's the same for everybody. It doesn't make it less crazy. And when you have a player that everybody's focused on and people are paying attention to, it stands out more. Where she can win the national championship on Sunday, celebrate it at UConn on Monday, get drafted the next Monday, be in training camp within 2 weeks from that, and then be playing in a preseason game in under a month. It's a wild turnaround. So, Paige, while she won that championship, and it was a great, nice close to her career, she had a lot of help with Sarah Strong and AZ Fudd. When she goes into the WNBA, now, we're going to see. We're going to see what she's really made of at that level. Because you notice when these comparisons come up, people don't point to what Clark did in the league. They go back to the college ring thing. Now, I hope the success for Paige too. I mean, I don't see the idea that somebody, like all these polarizing, I'm rooting for this person or that person. It's silly to me. When they get to play one another, that will be interesting. But I am curious, I guess is how I would put it, as to how Paige will adjust that same reality is coming adjustment to the WNBA in such a quick turnaround fashion. I don't know if she'll get the same level of defensive attention that Clark got as a rookie, but there'll be something there. All right, member chats, super chats get read first. I'll get into those now. Matthews Muses, watch the Letterman Clark 45-minute show this morning. She never gets old in these spots. David did a good job. She revealed more juicy stories. Rosalina, who is was on the last show, and she's now working with me on Indiana Fever on SI. She did a great write-up. I really enjoyed reading it, of the Letterman appearance. You can check that out on Indiana Fever on SI. The link to the site is in the description. I don't know if I linked that article or not, but you can clearly find it from there. But shouts to her for that. Kevin Zwicker says, congrats to UConn for adding another trophy to the case. Truly great. And congrats to Drake for breaking another Beatles record, a one-man dynasty. Drake is in the streaming era, Kevin. They're like, it's not apples to apples, was it with that I do not like that new song. I don't even know how it goes because I don't listen to it. What is it? Is he saying girls' names again? Who's that calling my phone or something like that? All right. Let me work my way back through here because I don't know if I'm not hating. As common sense once said, if I don't like it, I don't like it. Don't mean that I'm hating. But yeah, I do hate on him a little bit. That's definitely true. I mean, I can't lie about that. I don't lie to the audience. Here, get those likes in, get those comments in, thumbs up, all those things. Obviously, you know, we're finally creeping toward the WNBA season again. I feel like it's the ramp up period right now as we're getting there. AJ Ewing's always the best brother, great inspire. He was here on the show representing the Reese's Pieces. Maybe we'll bring him back if it's a Chicago Sky correspondent during the season because those will be the first games. But there's also going to be I had the NCAA tournament contest. There will be a WNBA draft contest as well. That's going live, I think, on Thursday. So I will share that when that comes up as well. Shy person was in the chat first. First person there was waiting. Says they're back. Lindy Smallwood asks, was that a put down to Asia? I didn't take it that way personally. Some people did take it that way. Maybe I'm wrong. I thought he was just kind of speaking in generalities. I didn't think it was that deep. I didn't think it was that calculated. I thought he was just like, you know, saying we're better than everybody else. That's the way I took it. Pete P says, I cannot stand that man in regards to Geno Auriemma. I like Geno. I didn't like his Caitlin Clark comment, just like a lot of y'all. I thought, you know, that wasn't great. It didn't come off great. It looks even worse in retrospect, but I don't like get my feelings hurt over stuff like that and hold a grudge forever. Geno's won a lot. He's got the respect of his players. He's entertaining. He's a great soundbite, which I appreciate in my line of work. I got nothing negative to say in general about Geno Auriemma. When you win that much, you know, what are people supposed? You know, you can't flex a little bit. KDB, I didn't take it as disrespect to SC. I thought it was his way of saying it's hard and iconic to even win one. Look at what we've done here, trying to lift UConn up, not tear everyone else down. That's also how I took it, Katie. That's also how I took it. Kevin Zwicker, who is the favorite to go number 2 in the draft with a lot of big names staying in school? It feels like more of a toss-up. That will be in the contest that we'll have running. I would say at this moment, it's Malanga, the center from France, if I had to guess. But a couple things affected the draft, right? Like, one, you've got the trades that teams made, like the Sparks trading out of that pick, the Sky trading out of their pick. 2, you've got the fact that a lot of players are deciding not to come in this year because of the CBA and how it impacts things and how, you know, they're opting out. The players are opting out of the CBA after this year. They're going to try to renegotiate a new one, which would change the rookie pay scale. Because as the rookie pay scale is, you know, what's Paige Bueckers going to make? $78,000 this year? Paige Bueckers is actually going to make a little bit more than Caitlin Clark this year, just like a little bit more because of the way that the current CBA is, where there's an escalator every year. But you got to hope, I would think the players are aiming for a bigger revenue share in the next deal, and therefore that their numbers would go up. Rick T, I've seen this brought up a few times. Several players claimed fans only watch Fever and Cece because Cece is white. I don't think several players claim that, but that was certainly something that was claimed. I think Asia did say her blood boils when people don't realize that the whiteness is part of Clark's popularity. I don't know how many players said it per se, Paige is white and a great player, but views down by 10 million in the finals. Doesn't that crush their intended narrative? Well, again, I don't want to act like the NCAA championship game numbers were bad. They weren't bad. They were quite good. Those are good-ass numbers. They beat everything in the WNBA last year, including Clark's games. Now, I think Clark had a huge role in that because this changed to the entire dynamic in the sport, and people stayed, and that carries over. Like, that's momentum that carries over. But to the point at hand, I've brought that up a million times. Caitlin Clark is far from the only great white player. She's just more exciting and explosive to watch than Paige Bueckers. And anybody who really says otherwise is lying. That doesn't mean Paige isn't an excellent player. But, like, you know, the key word for Paige is always efficiency. Usually when you're saying somebody's number one trait is efficiency, they're not as excited. I've never heard, like, there have been efficient NBA players, but I've never heard it as the lead. Like, it was like, Michael Jordan, efficiency is what stands out. LeBron James, efficiency. Kobe Bryant, efficiency. You know, like, none of those players. You know, Clark has a dynamic to her game. Both from the the passing, the logo threes, just the way she moves, she's explosive. Paige is solid in every way. But there's a different level of excitement that's kind of unexplainable. So I've never thought it was because Caitlin Clark's white. Can that be seasoning in the recipe? Sure. But the reasoning? No. Katie says there's two sides of making it annoying. One side ignores the growth without CC, and the other side ignores CC's pull and say it's for other reasons. It's annoying either way. That's right. Nobody can apply the proper context. Rostam Ism says, why is TV ratings higher in the NCAA W than WNBA? Well, I don't think the WNBA, really was on people's minds until last year. If I'm being quite frank, I mean, maybe when it first launched and early in its inception, but it just wasn't on people's radar. When the college game kind of always has been, at least to a degree. Like, you've heard about Geno Auriemma and UConn. If you had heard about anything in women's basketball, it was Geno Auriemma and UConn. And March Madness, you're going to have a carryover effect for people who are watching the men's side that are also going to watch the women. And they just didn't care about the WNBA. Clark both exploded the growth in the women's college game and made people care about the WNBA. And now I'm very interested to see if the WNBA can hit those numbers this coming season and grow even more off of last year's numbers. We shall see. Remember, super chats go up first. Like I said, as always. Let me see where we're at. Marlene Smith says Strong is a better player than Paige. Look, Sarah Strong is the prospect I'm most excited about. She's the best big prospect I've ever seen. I think she's got a chance to be one of the best players the game has ever seen. I don't think I've ever seen a big with her kind of ability. And so you've had, like, since Caitlin, there's Paige and there's Juju. And let's hope Juju gets back healthy. But that's not let's hope. It'll be nice when Juju gets back healthy. She's going to get back healthy. But Sarah Strong, to me, is the most exciting prospect, period. Another super chat coming in from Justin. Cece was asked about racism again in the Letterman interview. Will that just keep happening? Did you like her answer? I just kind of ignored it. I'm just tired of it. It's the same thing. We're going around in circles. And I'm glad it didn't seem to register today. I think that's a good sign that wasn't the headline everybody ran with. And Cece, what she did was kind of what she did not put the words white and privilege in that order, like white privilege. She used them, but they were not right next to each other. So there, but for whatever reason, that narrative has been hijacked and run into the ground. I hope it dies. I hope it dies. And I just see no reason to keep going back to it. Stern says, hard to get ratings when on Tubi. What was on Tubi? What is Tubi? I don't even know. Was that what the WNBA was on at one point? I don't know. Matthews Muses, I splurged for a courtside seat May 24th, first game against the Liberty. Super stoked. That's awesome. Michael says, mark my word, Lucy Olsen's name will be up there in the Rookie of the Year award in the WNBA. Look, I did a Fever WNBA draft piece that will drop tomorrow morning. It was hard, to be honest with you, because they're picked so late in the draft on who they might be targeting. And by the way, the Fever, whoever they draft, has an uphill climb to make the team. Sil says Anissa Morrow would be my pick. I think that was in reference to that second pick. She's a little undersized, but she can really rebound. Michael says Fever trading the 8th pick for Sophie Cunningham sounds really good now, doesn't it? Yeah, I liked it at the time too. I liked it at the time. I liked all those trades those teams made. Basil says, revenue share. Robin making the same dumb argument. That's what they're negotiating for, dude. A revenue share like the NBA. We'll see if how it works out, and obviously the league's going to have to make money for it to be a favorable endeavor. But what is a dumb argument about the clear goal of the players in the negotiations? Let me know. Crank that. 22, rooted for CC, not only being an elite player, but playing with a team that was underdogs against the big blue blood teams. Paige goes to UConn. Fair. That's true too. You did get a level of, carving out her own path that Caitlin did. For sure. Diana Noble. 2024 was the impact of CC, and the carryover to 2025 is the effect. The Fever have 3 draft picks, I believe, or they have 3 draft picks. They have 19, 20, and 33. Twofold says, but they want 50% of the revenue. That seems very unrealistic. Well, why is that unrealistic? If that's what the NBA has. The Fever have the... Oh, this is a good point. Because the NBA has ownership in the league. That's a fair point. Fair point. So it's not quite apples to apples. So I hear that point, and I understand that point. That makes sense. For sure. Why is that asking me something? The Fever have 19, 20, and I believe 33 is the next pick. Potential spam calling me right now as the only calls I get. Does the Fever have enough cap space to sign Bronny? Yeah, we'll see. We'll see if they can get it done. Appreciate all the interaction today, guys. We're getting there. We are, honest to goodness, finally getting there, right? Like, what do we got? 3 weeks until preseason now? A week until the draft? Pretty good. Pretty good. I do have to get my kids to some practices and the like, so any other chats, get them in now. Member chats, super chats, getting read first. Probably be a little bit of a shorter show today because of that, but I wanted to fit it in. Like I said, I've been ramping up, getting ready for the season, getting some stuff. I'm getting headshots tomorrow, y'all. To work on some new stuff, new presentation and the like. Then I'll be almost ready after that. I gotta reach out for some credentials. Want to make a trip to Indianapolis at the beginning of the year. Hopefully that works out. Again, Indiana Fever on SI is up and running. We'll keep building that. Pete P says, hit the like. Thank you. He also says, I needed adoption. Dude, sometimes I'm working so hard, I feel bad because my kids will call me like Mr. Work, and then I'm like, oh no. Or like I'll have my phone. Why are you on your phone, Daddy? Like yesterday we went to the from Big Rose. It was his 4th birthday, my youngest. And we went to the mall, the American Dream Mall. There's a water park in there. It's pretty dope, actually. And I was able to put my phone away for little bits of time. Bobby, you said it's been tough coming up with content during the offseason, but you did well, Robin. Can't wait for the season start when content will be focused on the play in the court. Me too. You know, the other thing about it is it's funny because it's the inverse. Like, it makes it easier. You get more bang for your buck, meaning you get more out of doing less. You don't have to search as much. I tried my best to do entertaining topics and topics that were interesting to folks that didn't totally stretch or come off lame or forced. I'm sure I missed here and there, but I honest to goodness did my best. Kelsey, the bailout queen, Latson in South Carolina. Yeah, they needed a scorer. So we'll see how it works out. You know, the thing about South Carolina is Dawn Staley is the star of the program. Right? And that's great for the program, but it wasn't great against UConn. You know, and that's why, like, when she was complaining or whatever she was doing about the amount of coverage that Paige got and Caitlin got the year before, one thing I noticed was she did not name any of her players in asking for the coverage. So I think she could have done a better job in specifically naming her players in that regard, because that would have helped get them attention. Where are we at? Did I miss any member or super chats? I don't believe so. Get those likes and subscribes in, y'all. I think I hit every topic I wanted to hit. Bailout Queen is saying hello to people. But yeah, we're getting there. We are getting there. Who just said, this was funny because where was the comment about jonesing for the WNBA season? I wanted to. Well, I mean, Chicago Cheetah, I think it does make the Gamecocks a contender. They were just in the national championship game. They're a contender. They were a contender without Latson. When you lose in the national championship game, you're a contender. Oh, PP said, did anyone ever think we would be jonesing for the WNBA? The apocalypse is here. I've been texting with Ryan Rucco, who's a good friend of mine. We used to do a show together, and he's the lead voice on the WNBA and on NCAA women's basketball. And there was a good feature, I think it was in Front Office Sports, about him, and I haven't talked to him specifically about this, so don't get me wrong, I'm not quoting him or sharing anything that he shared to me. I'm talking about what was in that piece. But the piece framed it as like him being reluctant to do WNBA at the time and having to be convinced. And I understand that. And it turned out to be an unbelievable position. And now he's in an unbelievable spot, and he does a great job, and he loves it, and he embraces it, and he's excited about it. Like when he's texting me, we're texting back and forth about like topics within the game, right? And I said to him yesterday, this is me saying it, and I did say this, like who would have, like if you had told me a year and change ago, my focus would be women's basketball, I would have thought you're nuts. And then if we go back to when we were doing this show together, if we were both going to be, doing women's basketball, we would have thought you were just completely out of your mind, like from another planet. Brian Livingston says, also Olsen being CC 2.0 means you think she would be better. Lucy Olsen? Look, Lucy Olsen's a nice player. She ain't in Caitlin Clark's galaxy. Like, nice player. KDB says, Indiana Fever posted a compilation video of all the U-bets he called for the Fever this year. LOL, that was fun. I should get him on to talk about that. All right, y'all. That's about all the time I got for today. I apologize. But, like I said, I'm pretty busy. I'll get another live in before the end of the week. And I will, continue to do what I do. But like, subscribe, all that. Thank you all for your participation. Thank you all for your support. As I always say, I feel like sometimes, I repeat myself in that regard, but I only say it because I mean it. Greg Stewart, Fever in Dallas can be the hot new WNBA rivalry, as stories with Paige, Carrington, Smith, and Dallas. Yeah, it's one of the most anticipated games, I think, outside of the Aces and the Sky, and maybe the Liberty game, or all of those. Madhouse claps. Sill says thank you, appreciate it. Butters, what are you doing? Trying to leave? You want to say bye, Butters? You want to do the sign off? Say bye. Or should we say happy birthday to Big Ro? Is he still here? Hang on. Is Ro on here? Is Ro on here? Ro, are you here? He's sleeping on the couch, so I'll have to pass along the birthday wishes. Hopefully he doesn't have a fever. Till next time, yeet.